Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ubi Sunt. This is actually the first Ubi Sunt in the year 2022. We are very excited to have with us Nely Alvarado. Welcome, Nelly. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Likewise.
Um, Nelly was one of our students in the Spanish minor, and also she did the certificate in translation and interpreting, and she passed the examination, I think, in May 2021. And she's also a major in justice studies with two concentrations that she will explain in a second. Actually, I think that you have a major and two concentrations, and you have two minors, and you have the certificate. So a very well-rounded academic track right there. And I would like to start by asking you a little bit about that academic track that you chose at Montclair State University, and we can start with that.
Okay. So when I first started Montclair, I had no idea what I wanted to do actually. I applied as a business administration, I think. And then right before starting school, I called the school and I was like, can I drop my major? And I went in as undeclared. And I was like that for the first two semesters until I had a coworker who was in the justice studies department and she was talking about immigration and in laws and everything. And I got really excited and I was like, can I please speak with your advisor? And she was like, yes, I'm going to ask her. I'm going to schedule an appointment. And I was like, okay. So I did. I spoke to her advisor, who then became my advisor. And she helped me understand like a lot of the program. I started off a semester in French, and I guess I didn't feel like it was where I belonged. So I took a semester. I took the an exam, the placement test, and I was placed in one of your courses. That was my first Spanish course at Montclair. And
41 or
after that,
242, something like that, or
yes,
okay.
I was in front of the class, every class with my highlighters and my book.
I
Um,
remember you. Yeah.
Yes. And I remember one of the classes you talked about an internship in New York, in the courts. And it was two programs. It was like a 20-hour one and then a 100 hour one. And then you talked to me about it. Well, you talked to the whole class, and then I came to you afterwards, and you were saying how good it would look with everything else I was doing with my major. So first semester they were doing it, I was a little scared, so I didn't do it. I think I waited off like for two semesters, and then I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. So I did. I did the 20 hours one, and I was going every Friday. I think it was for like 9 to 1 or something like that, and it was quite an experience. That's I don't know. I guess it just tied up both things for me, like the law and Spanish in one thing, and it was a really good experience actually.
It was perfect. That internship, you can actually have the internship as a 5 Fridays in the semester, something like that, like from 9 to 1, as a 20 hour or something, like a volunteer internship. And then you can take the long internship, which is like every Friday of the semester, like 14 weeks from 9 to 5, and it will count as credits. Unfortunately, we don't have that internship because of COVID. It was canceled. So we are looking forward to resume that partnership with the New York Unified Court System because it was excellent. And I remember you that you were very proactive. Like every single time we announced an opportunity of partnership with another institution or with the court system, you were always asking questions and like, I need more information and cultural activities, events. And I think that's something very important that any student, undergraduate and graduate students, should do on campus, right? I don't know if you want to comment on that, how the student involvement, not only in class, but outside the classroom, can be an asset for your future
Yes.
job. Hmm.
And I remember that I'm not sure if you were the only professor because I only took you for Spanish, but a lot of times where there was like another event going on campus at the same time we had your class, you'll be like, if you want to go to that event, and then just let me know, bring a flyer, or just give me a little brief of what happened in the event, I'll count it as a class participation instead of coming to class. And I think that helps a lot because you get to be involving on campus, and sometimes we need that. Sometimes we don't know what's out there, so being involved brings you to new people, new opportunities, opens new doors. So I think it's a really good opportunity for people to take advantage of that.
Right. And also another thing that you mentioned about advising. You started doing like business, something related to business, you realize that you were not like, you didn't fit quite well there, and then you look for help, like you reach out to an advisor. And that's another aspect that I think that especially undergraduate students, the first year freshman students should do, right? Like talk to your advisor, explore another opportunities. There are so many certificates, minors, combinations. Now we have a new major in Spanish, which is only 30 credits, and that gives you the possibility of doing another like double major, minor, multiple combinations, right?
Yes, my advisor was really helpful in what she called double dipping. That's how I got my second minor, and I think it came in quite handy.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So now we're gonna talk about how your major, minor, and certificate at MSU help you to look for a job or to start a career in translation. Or
Okay, so when I was still in college, I got my seal as a public notary, but I wasn't active. I just got it. It was more of a challenge because it was really bad. Somebody told me I was working for a company and they did like a lot of translations and they were public notaries, and they were like, "Oh, you will never be able to like be a translator or a public notary, anything like that." And I was like, okay, we'll see. So I went ahead. I started learning about how to become a public notary, what they do, and started getting involved. And I got my seal. But I wasn't really active. People didn't really know me, and I wasn't really sure of what I was doing, so I didn't want to do it incorrectly. So I had my seal, left it to the side. I was taking classes with you, and I had a classmate, Matt. One day he reached out and he said, Nelly, I have this journalist who is looking for somebody who can interpret. He's working on a case, on a Peruvian case with like a kingpin, and I can't do it, but I know that you took that internship, so I'm reaching out to you if you want to do it. And I was like, okay, I don't know. Interpreting and translations are two different things. I think I was more used to the translation part because it was more on paper than like interpreting face to face. But I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. So I did. I accepted. I met with the journalist. Everything was over the phone with the guy in Peru. And I guess that was my first job combining both things together. So after that, I had to do an internship for my justice studies major. And I ended up doing it with the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice. And once again, came in handy, knowing Spanish. I was doing a lot of translation, newsletters, presentations, social media posts, and things like that. And I think I that's where I started like attaching my notary seal.
Mhm.
We got to pass the law of New Jersey driver license for all, and for the motor vehicle commission, they were asking for affidavits, and they had to be either notarized or signed in front of somebody who worked at DMV. So a lot of people, a lot of family members, once they found out I had my seal, they started reaching out, like, like I have to sign this, and I have to get it sealed, and I have to translate my documents. They're in Spanish, my birth certificate, my passport, the license of my country. So I was like, okay, let me start freelancing this. So I did. I was working at a restaurant as a waitress, and I kept both things. So I was still at the restaurant and I was doing my job on the side. Graduated college, kept doing it. I tried to look for a job, but because of COVID, it was really hard. A lot of people were asking for experience, which I really didn't have. Although I was a paralegal, I was certified as a paralegal. I didn't really have experience, so it was really like a little bit tough because I guess at a point you get frustrated. You start looking for opportunities and you feel like they're closing the door on you, but you don't give up. I became a manager of the restaurant. It was a little harder. My boss was Chinese. I was the one interpreting from him to the rest of the staff because they didn't speak any English. He didn't speak any Spanish. So then once again, there I was using the skills I learned in your classes. And recently, I got a job opportunity at a law firm, other law. And I was a little bit nervous when they called at first. We had an initial interview over the phone. Then they asked me to come in. I did. Um, I turned in my resume. They started asking about my public notary work. And then they saw that I was a certified translator and they started talking amongst themselves. And they're like, we don't really serve the Hispanic community. Yes, because we don't speak Spanish. Oh, so if we bring Nelly aboard, then we'll be able to provide the service. And I was like, yes,
Great.
please. Yes. And then I got the job.
Well,
Last week
congratulations.
was, thank you. Last week was my first week and everything is going great.
Nice. So you're going to be able to implement your Spanish and translation and interpreting skills into your new job. That's amazing.
Yes.
I think that you took, I remember you in the translation and the law class, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this because I know that some of my students are going to watch this Ubi Sunt episode next week. And that class is really like we have a lot of students and some graduate students, undergraduate students. Some of them are justice studies major with concentration in paralegal studies, other concentrations such as linguistic Spanish. What would you say to these students who are currently taking this course in terms of maybe things that you should pay more attention to, or maybe the readings that some of them said, do we have to read about the criminal law process, the parts of the trial, what type of verdicts we can have? All these readings are really necessary for a translator. What would you say to them? Not necessarily about the
Yes.
readings, but about the whole experience of the course. If it's some part that you found more useful than others, or
Um, the translation course, I think it was capstone course translation of the law. I still have all the readers. I will never get rid of them because I always go back to them.
Mhm.
um, yes, you must read. It's really important because you have to come to class prepared. Yes, all the professor says is, but your class is special. You have to read. You have to participate because you never know when Dr. Vizcaíno is going to be like, so Nelly, what was the reading about? Not only that, but I feel like a certain point, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but a certain point when you start reading and then you start connecting certain things that you may know and you feel like other people may not know, or that if you find something helpful you're able to share with the class because you knew what the reading was about. So I remember that there were certain times in classes when I used to like read and I used to be like, wait, I saw something online or something like that, and I used to go like Google or wherever it was that I saw it, download the photo and be like, Dr. Vizcaíno, I found this online, do you think this would be helpful for the rest of the class? Do you want to share with the class? um for the law course, I remembered I ended up getting a dictionary that I still have. I actually have it in the office now. That I always go back, and I think it's really important that you become close to your classmates because you're able to talk to them. There are things that you feel like you know, but when you hear somebody talk about it, sometimes it doesn't have to be the professor. Sometimes it can be your classmates.
Mm,
You get a better understanding of what the subject is. So I think that's really important.
thank you. Um, we are implementing a new course on CAT tools. Actually, it's going to be offered for the first time this summer, computer assisted translation tools. And I would like to know what type of software and technology tools do you use right now or in your jobs as a freelance translator? If you have used some machine translation as well, or any memory translation tools, electronic dictionaries or glossaries that you recommend.
I haven't actually used any online softwares. I think everything I've done so far has been just either by knowledge or by online researching. Sometimes I feel like, to me, I'm from Guatemala. To me, one word means one thing, but I've had customers, let's say they're from Ecuador, they mean like a completely different thing. So before me, being able to like say this is exactly how I'm going to put it on paper, I have to make sure like people are going to understand. So I still keep using Lingui,
Mm-hmm.
the corpus. I always go back to my readers, and I don't know if you remember, but I started a dictionary on my own in class with words that I didn't know or new words that I thought that were going to be helpful afterwards. So I always do like the word in Spanish, the word in English, the meaning in English, the meaning in Spanish, and an example. Sometimes I write like synonyms, just to, like, have a better, you know, I guess, reference to go back to.
I love that. And I think it's a very healthy habit in translation classes. I always recommend that to students: create your own glossaries, create your own list of false friends, false cognates. Because once you create them, and as you said, term, definition, and a sample, I mean, the usage of the word in context, that is going to be like more recorded in your mind forever, rather than if you go to the dictionary or to the electronic glossary and you see that on a screen, something that you have created yourself. Let's switch now to Spanish. Vamos a cambiar al español y vamos a hacer algunas preguntas. Me alegro mucho de que hayan mencionado lo de Guatemala, porque efectivamente en las clases de español y en las clases de traducción especialmente, siempre hacemos hincapié en la idea de que el español se habla en 23 países del mundo, en el español de Estados Unidos, y cómo eso puede a veces crearnos dolores de cabeza, puede ser un reto interesante, enriquecedor, y al mismo tiempo puede ser una dificultad, ¿no? Entonces quería que me contaras si tiene alguna anécdota que te haya pasado, algún malentendido en alguna interpretación, o quizá en alguna traducción que tú has tenido ese problema de decir, what is my target audience? ¿Cuál es mi audiencia meta? Si el español, yo no sé qué tipo de español debería utilizar en este documento, en esta traducción.
Yo recuerdo mucho sus clases, no recuerdo exactamente qué clase fue, pero recuerdo cuando tomamos un semestre que estábamos haciendo todo tipo de traducción, estábamos haciendo traducción de periodismo, de lectura, estábamos hablando de recetas, de traveling, y recuerdo muy bien cuando usted hablaba como que si usted tiene French fries y usted lo quiere poner en el menú, ¿cómo va a decir? ¿Batatas fritas? Y son cosas que siempre me regresan a la mente. También recuerdo una vez que estábamos hablando de, no recuerdo exactamente cuál era el passage, pero hablábamos como que, ok, el carro, el coche viene hacia mí. Y yo no sé si usted recuerda, yo recuerdo que yo me empecé a reír enfrente de la clase, yo no me pude contener. ¿Por qué? Porque en Guatemala coche, en las áreas más como rurales, son como que es un cerdo. Entonces cuando usted dice, el coche viene a mí, yo, el cerdo viene a mí, como entonces me pareció demasiado gracioso. Son cosas que ya después obviamente uno empieza a pensar, ok, ¿cómo lo puedo decir de una manera donde el lector me vaya a entender?
Sí, sí, sí. Efectivamente, el papel de la cultura siempre, ¿no? También enfatizamos lo mismo, ¿no? Como siendo todo hispanohablante, hay culturas más marcadas, cultura en los Estados Unidos, el español de Estados Unidos, y el aspecto cultural también lo intentamos reflejar en nuestro major, en nuestro minor. ¿Has tenido algún tema también curioso desde el punto de vista cultural con algún cliente, con alguna audiencia, en donde tú digas, bueno, esto es un tema cultural que no lo puedo tocar o que lo tengo que manejar de otra manera?
Eh, Cuando trabajaba en el restaurante me llegaban muchas personas a ordenar en español, por ejemplo, y recuerdo que una vez, algo nuevo, pero no sé por qué, me pareció como, me agarró desprevenida. Llegó una clienta y me dice, quiero cancelar mi orden. Y yo le dije, pero ya le va a salir, solo deme un ratito. Me dice, no, se la quiero pagar. Y yo, ay, perdone. Entonces fue como que, ok, fue algo, no puedo decir que era algo nuevo, tal vez fue más como que a como estaban pasando las cosas, yo estaba muy ocupada, ya llegó, me agarró desprevenida, yo no analicé lo que me estaba queriendo decir, yo automáticamente asumí que ella quería cancelar la orden de ya no la quería, pero me dice, no, yo la quiero pagar, y yo, ok.
Sí, me acuerdo además que en la clase de traducción jurídica, uno de los primeros ejemplos creo que era con el verbo cancelar en español, como una palabra polisémica, pues un ejemplo de cancelar una factura, ¿no? Que efectivamente es pagarla, no
Sí,
eliminarla, ¿no? Entonces es curioso, ¿no? Efectivamente, lo de cancelar puede dar lugar a un malentendido, y ahí de nuevo la importancia del traductor o del intérprete como mediador, como facilitador de esa cultura, ¿no? De ese intercambio cultural.
claro,
Muy bien,
sí.
Nelly. ¿Algún consejo que quieras dar a los estudiantes, así un poco para terminar? esta entrevista, algún consejo que quieras dar a los estudiantes, de cara a algunos que se van a graduar ahora en mayo, o incluso a los que están iniciando su carrera como traductores en español.
Bueno, a los que están recién empezando, no se den por vencida. Yo recuerdo que en una cierta clase, no recuerdo en cuál fue, yo tuve un breakdown. Yo dije, yo ya no puedo. Yo llegué a usted y yo le dije, yo creo que ya no voy a seguir. Las cosas se complicaron un poquito. Yo creo que va como que demasiado, porque aparte de todo lo que estaba haciendo en la universidad, yo tenía como 2 o 3 trabajos, no recuerdo. Y era como que mucha presión en mí. Yo dije, no, yo no puedo terminar el certificado, yo lo tengo que dejar. Y era lo más fácil dejar de todo lo que llevaba en el plato. Pero usted me empezó a cuestionar, usted siempre me empujaba. Y creo que una de las cosas que más me gustaba de su clase era eso. Era el, ¿por qué, Nely? ¿Pero por qué? Y yo, buena pregunta, ¿por qué? Entonces siempre me ponía a analizar. No se den por vencidos. A los que están terminando, posiblemente se les dificulte un poquito por todo lo que está pasando, por COVID. Muchas personas, pues sí, no quieren abrir sus puertas y no tienen experiencia. Hagan la experiencia. Porque no les va, muchas veces uno se sienta a esperar que le llegue una oportunidad a casa, pero uno no las busca. Eso es otra cosa que aprendí en su clase o con usted, cuando lo de las becas, por ejemplo, yo sabía que yo no calificaba para ninguna de las becas que estaba dando el departamento. Y usted me decía, no importa, tú aplica. Y apliqué y me saqué una. Muchas gracias. Recuerdo muy bien el día de la ceremonia. Entonces son cosas que uno tiene que buscar, porque las cosas no llegan a uno solo porque sí. Consejos que yo le daría, be proactive. Always be active and proactive in class, on campus. Yo creo que la clase de español es como una mini familia. Siempre me ha pasado eso en la clase de español. Creo que es muy difícil que me pasara en otra clase, pero siempre sentía como que una unión. Y creo que eso es muy bonito. Cuando iba a hacer el internship a Nueva York, recuerdo que una de mis compañeras lo estaba haciendo conmigo y era como que, ¿tú escuchaste lo que dijo ella? ¿Cómo lo dirías tú? ¿O tú crees que ella lo interpretó bien? Siempre tienen uno con quien hablar cuando uno se hace amigo o se hace buen compañero de otra persona. Entonces, para mí eso es muy importante. No tengan miedo de hacer preguntas. Usted sabe que yo siempre estaba en su oficina casi todos los días después de clases, o incluso cuando necesitaba algún consejo de qué clase debería tomar ahora. O creo que tuve un problema con una clase que había tomado que no me iba a contar para el minor y yo insistiendo, necesito que me haga el transfer, que me cuenten los créditos. Entonces es muy importante estar uno encima de sus cosas porque uno al final se quiere graduar. Entonces, para graduarse, you have to be on top of your things.
Muy bien, me encanta todo tu consejo y ahora que viene además las becas que las vamos a anunciar ya la semana que viene, efectivamente, nunca te rechaces tú misma, sino dejas que otros te rechacen o te eliminen de una competición, pero siempre tienes que presentarte, siempre tienes que ir hacia adelante, ser proactiva. Yo creo que tú eres un modelo de persona que ha estado ahí aprovechando todas las oportunidades del campus, de eventos culturales, del internship, de las clases, haciéndome preguntas, cuestionándote y yo a lo mejor empujándote un poco a cuestionarte, ¿no? Para todo lo que decimos en la universidad, que critical thinking es tan importante, lo tenemos que aplicar en nuestra vida diaria y personal y profesional y académica, y me da muchísimo orgullo verte tan profesional, tan madura, Nely, tan contenta. Siempre te recuerdo como una niña súper feliz, o sea, una chica contenta con lo que estudiaba, satisfecha, y yo creo que eso se transmite. Se transmite. Cuando a uno le gusta lo que hace, pues a los demás también les gusta ver eso, ¿no? Entonces, hace una traducción, un cliente satisfecho, una comunicación fluida por email, una persona profesional, pues te van a seguir llamando. Entonces, efectivamente, lo que tú dices, o sea, hay que buscar las oportunidades, nadie va a tocar a tu puerta, tienes que ser tú la que, sobre todo al principio, ¿no? La que se busque las oportunidades, pero dando lo mejor de ti misma, como te pasa a ti, van a seguir saliendo oportunidades, clientes, etcétera, etcétera. Y como tu trabajo que te acaba de salir, ¿no? Entonces, de nuevo, enhorabuena, me da muchísima alegría verte, saber que aprovechaste también tu andadura por Montclair State University y qué alegría tenerte ahora en este espacio, ¿no? Que hace poquito, hace ni siquiera un año, que te fuiste de casa y ahora te tenemos otra vez aquí dándole consejo a las nuevas jornadas de estudiantes, ¿no? Eso nos llena de satisfacción y de orgullo. O sea que muchísimas gracias por tu tiempo, por haberlo hecho tan bien y ojalá que te podamos ver en otro espacio compartiendo tus próximas experiencias con este flamante trabajo que acabas de empezar con nosotros. Y cuando quieras, pues estamos ya en campus, en persona, o sea que cualquier día te invito a una clase también para que recuerdes tus viejos tiempos.
Claro que sí, muchas gracias a ustedes por tenerme y pues nada, sería un orgullo y un placer regresar.
Muchas gracias, Nelly. Cuídate mucho.